All right, everybody, let's do a little update. It's been a few days, a little longer than my past updates, but I got a lot done. The very obvious thing that you guys see here is I've started applying the finishes to the camper. So the roof is actually finished, and what you see up there is Durabac. I just rolled it on, turned out pretty good. It's still curing. It takes about a week to get its final hardening, but it's not tacky or anything right now. For context of the amount that I used, and this camper is for a 6.5 foot bed, I used a gallon for the top. Truth be known, I probably could have got away with maybe 3/4 of a gallon, but of course they only sell it in quart and gallon sizes, so I went ahead and just added a few extra coats on there. And that turned out really well. And then the finish on the wood, this is the first coat, and this is a product that I've used since my very first camper, which I absolutely really enjoy. I really like it. And this is, I can't understand what the name of the company is, but it's PPG Prolux, and then they also go by Cetol, Cetol. And this is their log and siding wood finish. They make a couple different varieties. And this particular one is the cedar color. Now, this is the same finish that I used on Camper 8.0, if you guys recall. And that was a little bit darker of a brown. It's the same brand, same type of finish, just a different color. And that was called Butternut. This one is a cedar one. So you guys can see it's a little bit lighter. If any of you guys have been around with me going all the way back to Camper 1.0 and 2.0, this is the color that I used on those. So like I said, this is the first coat. It has to dry about 24 hours between coats, and you would normally put about 2. And as you guys can see, this kind of looks a little bit dull. What it does, what I've noticed from my experience using it, is on the very first coat, it will absorb into the wood. It'll get like really flat looking. In fact, it'll kind of almost not look good, to be honest with you. Sometimes it'll look a little blotchy in that initial stage. But when you put that second coat on, it sits more on top of the wood, and that'll give it, a little bit more of a pleasant, kind of a glossier look. And they recommend 2 coats for full coverage. So I obviously coated the entire outside, and then I also did the inside. Now, most of these wall surfaces in here, I will put some insulation in, but I coated both sides. That way it seals the wood on both sides. And I'm not really worried about condensation in terms of this being cedar, but, I guess if there was any condensation issues, it wouldn't rot the wood. Now, up here on the plywood, that's real important, though, to me to get a nice waterproof coating. So I'm going to let this dry up until tomorrow, and then I'll put the second coat on all around it. Now, there was a lot of other little things that I finished up. Last video, as I recall, I spent quite a bit of time talking about how I did the roof, so I won't touch on that. I can't remember if the door was constructed, but finished up the door. It doesn't really look great, I know, because it's tough when it's in that first phase, but I added a few little decorative elements just to kind of give it a little bit of intrigue. Of course, the porthole window will be in the back there. And then I don't want to touch it because I'll get it all in my hands. But the way this door was made is it's a hardwood frame. I believe that's maple, if I recall correctly. The whole lock set, as you guys can see, sits in a chunk of hardwood. A second stringer across, and then the cedar planks sit on top. And this top crested piece right here, which will mesh up with this curved opening, is actually just the piece that I actually cut off from this piece here. So before I put the coating on there, I did fit the lock set. So I hand mortised the, crap, I don't remember the part of it, but the section for the lock, for the door lock there. So it's reset. Same thing here for the stop on this side. Put in the door stops all around. These are actually hardwood. The top one is actually cedar, but the side ones are hardwood. And then I also, something I picked up doing, I don't remember, a couple campers ago, is I actually put a stop down here at the bottom. I tried having those waterproof sweeps, you know what I'm talking about, but they just never quite worked well. So I put the stop on here on the bottom, and that works out really well too. So when the door shuts, it's actually sealing up directly against the wood. And then, of course, I set the door in place and drilled the holes for the hinges. So when I get the second coat on and this is fully dry, all I got to do is just put the hinges on, which I've already installed once. So all the holes are pre-drilled. Everything fits the way it should. Do the lock set, do the window, and then I can go ahead and install the door. Okay, so a couple of the other things that I've done since then is added a few pieces of trim. And probably one of my favorite features of this is this arching trim over the top here. Hope it's showing up well in this video. Man, I think it looks great. I think it looks like almost like a piece of crown molding or something. And if you guys remember, I had the little stubbies sticking out. So what I did just to make it nice and neat is I just cut a little circular arc there, and then that kind of radiuses a little bit and rolls seamlessly into this little thing there. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was really happy with how that turned out. And then basically just to get that look, kind of like like I said, like a crown molding look, I just cut thin pieces of cedar and just kind of layered it in. You know, it's a little bit of artistic. There's just kind of a feel for it. But I was really happy with how that turned out. Let's go around the back here. And the back is pretty simplistic. I just added a little piece of trim on each side and a little piece of trim over the top. And of course, I think I showed that last time. There's a porthole window. Speaking of the door lock set, I don't have the hinges handy on me, but one thing I meant to mention is the hinges I'm using are, they call them security hinges. So the pin itself is locked in place because obviously the hinges are going to be exposed to the exterior here. So if someone were to build something of the similar nature for security purposes, get the security hinges. They're just on Amazon. Just type in security hinges. There's a couple different brands out there. I've used a couple of them. They're all about the same, but they work well. But yeah, that way for the security. But like, I think I talked about this last week. I seem to remember this, but having this hardwood door frame, having the hardwood frame on this door and the security hinges, you guys can imagine this thing is going to be really, really secure. I feel like there's probably more stuff I've done, but in a nutshell, that's about it. So again, for context of use, that PPG Prolux product just comes in a gallon also. For me to coat for that first coat on the interior and the exterior, it took just a little under half a gallon. So if you were building a similar project to this, a gallon you'd probably have a little bit left over. And the nice thing about this product, as opposed to something like the Durabac where you got to use it all one, you can actually seal this product up. There's obviously going to be some period of time you have to use it within, but I've had not this particular can, but I've had other cans sealed up for, probably close to a year, popped them open and was still able to use it to touch up things. So it's really, really handy. And that's a whole nother reason why I like these cedar exteriors, is they have a nice rustic look. If you ever have to touch up anything, it's a lot easier to touch up than, like an automotive paint or even the Durabac. And like I said, that can, you could just keep it with you and, I don't know, you drive through the forest and scrape a tree on the side or something, you could touch it up, or if you find a spot you miss. So it's really, really fixable, really easy to maintain this. So, the Durabac, you believe it or not, you can just roll it on, which makes it pretty easy to apply. One thing to remember is the roller you have to use has to have a very short nap, specifically 3/16 of an inch. They're a little hard to find, or at least in my area, but I found some on Amazon. Durabac has its pros and cons, but for an application like this, I think it suits it real well and that kind of thing. So, And so the project is getting very close. Essentially, the timeline of the next rest of the things I have to do is I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours. I'm going to put my second coat on tomorrow. And then on the inside, I got to run a few wires. It's going to have just a very basic electrical system. I'll put a little exterior light and fuse box and, you know, a couple ports to plug in, you know, a DC fridge and that kind of thing. This particular camper will be run off of a power bank. And just like I did in the van, I'll put a ZAMP external outlet plug in. So, and I'll give him just a little 100-watt panel that he can carry with him. So if he's out at a campsite, he could just plug that panel in from the outside. So there'll be no solar on the top. I got to install the windows, and those are going to be the acrylic windows like I used on 7, 8, and 9, camper 7, 8, 9. And then the inside, in the spaces between the vertical columns, I'll be putting in some insulation, and I'll put some insulation in the roof. And then I'm going to build a little bed and a little nightstand for him, and this project will be wrapped up. I'm told him, and I think I should meet this deadline, is I'll have this finished up by about February 23rd. So this has been a fun project. I got a lot left, but we're definitely getting close. The real nice thing about it is, you know, this is a project that's not like a marathon. Some of the camper projects where they carry on for 3, 4, I think camper 3.0 was like 5 months, if my memory is correct. Man, it kind of gets a little tiring, to be honest with you. But this was it's kind of nice to have a smaller project that you can knock out. So I hope I covered everything, guys. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, drop them in there. I'll try to answer them. And hope you guys are all doing well. Thanks for watching and all your support.